levels of individual player development. You give us 15, 20 minutes, Darrell and I are going to explain our framework of our individual player development program that we use at Athletic Mission Baseball Academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Geoff and Darrell here, and we help baseball players get to the next level with a strategic advantage so that they can play with supreme confidence against the best players at any level. In every episode, we promise to deliver value on the strategic side of player development to help your players compete with players just as good, if not better than them. One of the biggest questions that Darrell and I get is, how do we get to the next level, whether that be high school, college, or pro ball? We need a way to explain this, so we create a framework. We call it the 4 levels of individual player development of what it takes to develop into a next level pitcher or hitter. These are the same 4 levels we teach players to self-evaluate, because we can't get to the next level until we understand where we are at. Darrell is a pitching strategist, I am a hitting strategist, and we define the 4 levels as competitive advantage, unique pitching and unique hitting skills, strategic advantage, and finally, game day execution. So Darrell, let's do an overview of these 4 levels, and in the next upcoming week, we'll go deeper into each of these so that our listeners can get a better understanding of these 4 levels. Does that sound good?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Geoff, I'm glad to be here. Hey, man, I think it's really about, just like you said, it's identifying, learning how to self-evaluate, self-scout, but also kind of giving us the ability to kind of help these young players figure out where they're currently at. And the way I look at it is when we talk about the 4 levels, we're talking about either individual development level, we're talking about, individual skill level, and then ultimately, how do we prepare for an opponent? And then honestly, the true serum of it all is, how do we show up on game day? So when we work through the competitive advantage, it's more about physical skills. It's more about the measurables, kind of what probably 99% of the baseball world is focused on right now, is more around your athleticism. For pitchers, it's more like mechanics, velocity. And then we dig deeper into a little bit about practice habits, routines, the drills, all the different, techniques and tactics that's kind of out there in the baseball world today to kind of go through and help these players develop the individual skill set, or what I call the physical skill set. And then when we work through the other 3 levels, which is kind of where you and I play at, is how do we take that athleticism and that current level of skill set and really develop unique either pitching skills or hitting skills. And then that's what the way I frame it with my guys is kind of how we walk through the you part of it. Your competitive advantage is your athleticism, your mechanics, velocity, kind of the things that set you apart, your work ethic. And then unique pitching skills is kind of the mastery piece of that. So it's called, if for the pitching side of it, it's really around pitch matching, or do you throw pitches that are instinctive to your arm slot? And then we really focus on what I call movement matching, mapping, where we really understand how we throw our pitches by velocity and movement to a specific location. And then ultimately the mastery of that, which is what pitching is. It's how do we develop and master our pitches by velocity and movement and be able to execute those to a specific location on purpose. So once we got that piece down, and again, when I talk about mastery, I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about mastering. That means we can throw that pitch on purpose. And honestly, that's the foundation that I've found that gives pitchers confidence to, 1, that they believe they could throw that pitch in a real game, and then 2, be able to throw that pitch in any situation and count. And then that kind of leads us into level 3, level 4, which is strategic advantage, which is really what we call at Athletic Mission, strategic advantage mindset process. And it's how we develop clarity, understanding, mastery, strategy, and execution. And within that 5 components of that, how do we read and study hitters? Or as a hitter, how do we read and study pitchers and literally put a game plan together? And so I think that's the missing piece for a lot of these young players, that they're so focused on the competitive advantage and really kind of trying to develop out their unique pitching skills or unique hitting skills, that as coaches and managers, we kind of just assume that the strategic side of it's going to happen on game day. But I think what we're finding for these guys to really start leveling up and playing against players that are as good or better than them, then this strategic advantage and their ability to create and develop a strategic advantage mindset has really been the key for us here at Athletic Mission to kind of help our guys differentiate themselves. And so far, man, I think it's been a pretty good success down here, and the feedback we're getting has been really positive. And then as we finish up on game day, as you and I always talk about, that at the end of the day, no matter what we teach these guys or what we help these guys develop, that if it don't play on the field or if it don't work in a real baseball game, then we got some work to do, man. Something's not working. So it's not about the tools and the tactics unless it works on game day, because ultimately everybody wants to be a baseball player, man, and they want to be pretty good at it. So I think that's kind of the 10,000 foot overview of the strategic advantage baseball process that we use here at Athletic Mission. And I'm looking forward to breaking it down and going deeper as we start working through the next few shows, man. So,
yeah, you know, and the hitting side, it's going to be pretty similar in the sense that there's the 4 levels that we're talking about in the individual development, the individual skill development, the unique skills, how we prepare for an opponent, and then lastly, showing up on game day. And Darrell, like you mentioned earlier, the competitive advantage is more about the physical skills. So it's more about the athletic system, the practice habits, the routine, the mechanics. And then it's also about the measurables. So the active velocity, launch angle, time to contact, whatever you choose to use, spin, whatever you choose to use, it's all classified as a competitive advantage. And this is where the industry as a whole tend to focus on the most. And it's important. And we do all of this here at Athletic Mission. But the next 3 levels is where we tend to focus on it. And it's where we tend to want to have the conversation with parents, players, and coaches. So we're taking a player's individual skills and we're developing their own unique hitting skills and what they are good at and what they want to master. So Darrell has something called pitch matching. Well, I have something that I call swing matching. Basically, we're trying to make sure that we have a swing for the type of hitter that you are. And understanding where you're at and starting there. Too many guys don't know what kind of hitter they are. And therefore they are working on the wrong stuff and going in the wrong direction. So what we do through our assessment process and through our conversation is we really try to get hitters to understand where they're at and what kind of hitter that they are. And then next I have what I call command hitting. And this is where we understand how to execute situational hitting and being able to execute it in a real game in a high pressure situation and being able to do it on purpose. Now, remember, Darrell talked about the mastery. And when we talk about mastery, we're not talking about perfection. We're talking about being able to execute a master skill when you want. On purpose is the word he used. And this is where the hitter and the pitcher gain confidence because they believe they can execute in a real game in any count and situation. Now, this is taking us up to level 3, which is the strategic advantage mindset, which is how we develop the clarity, understanding, mastery, strategy, and execution. And within that, how we read and study pitchers so that we can develop a game plan. And, you know, man, Darrell and I have been at this quite some time, and we believe that this is the missing link for a lot of players who are trapped in this level 1 competitive advantage and just showing up on game day, assuming that the strategic side will show up. But what guys are finding the strategic advantage mindset, This is the key when we start talking about facing pitchers who are just as good, if not better than us. And then lastly, we have the game day execution. And like Darrell said, this is an area that we both focused on because everything that we do in practice needs to show up on game day.
Yes.
So yeah, Darrell, I mean, we talk about this all the time. So yeah, I think this is the what next answer, because as an industry, we are so focused on the competitive advantage. And you and I say this all the time, man. There's a ton of great guys doing great stuff. But there's a lot of really good players looking for that what's next. And that's the part that you and I are trying to provide solution for, which again is the mastery of unique skills and then taking what you do and going and competing against guys that are just as good, if not better than you. And you know what? Players want to have this conversation. And could especially when they realize that there's more to it than just the velocity, exit velocity, and et cetera. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to go deeper into this in the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, and I think once we can kind of expand the conversation, because I think what happens is once we move past physical skill set, everybody thinks it's all mental. And what we've done here is kind of say, okay, yeah, there's a mental piece of it. Mental, the way we frame it is your thoughts. And right. Then the truth is how do we take those thoughts and turn them into actions? And for us, the ability to do both is strategic. And so we've kind of redefined the mental side of pitching or the mental side of hitting and said, hey, man, there is a conversation about your thoughts and what you're thinking. And that's important. We're not trying to downplay that.
Right.
But the rest of baseball is not just about how you think. It's not physical and mental. There really is that unique combination that creates strategy.
Right.
And then being able to go execute a strategy and then make those confident adjustments in the middle of a game is not just about the mental side of it. It's really the strategic side of it.
Right.
And so I think as we kind of open that door to kind of get out of the taboo mental side, because the mental side has kind of been this kind of woo-woo positive thinking, kind of focused on, the internal things that you could control. But I think what happens with strategy is now all of a sudden we take our individual skill set and start matching it up against our opponent as a whole, and then each individual hitter or pitcher that we're going to be battling. And then now all of a sudden it takes on almost a different mindset with these players. And the guys that we've had that's had a lot of success with this have taken that strategic advantage mindset and really dug deeper into how do I really prepare before the game so they know they can play with supreme confidence during the game. And that's kind of where you see all the data analytics and everything moving the game to, but we haven't really taught these young players how to have the mindset to use that data and that it really feel individualized and personalized. And I think that's what we're trying to do here that so far as has been fun with our group and looking forward to having discussion at a higher level or with more coaches down the road.
Yeah, and you and I are in the trenches every single day. So we pay attention to what's going on in real life and on the internet and all this stuff. And there's a ton of buzzwords out there, and that's real. But the question has to be, how do you take that and develop a process that guys can use in a real baseball game? And I think we have to first get guys to understand where they are at and then take them to the next step of mastery of the unique skills, then the strategic advantage mindset, and then eventually the game day execution.
Absolutely. And I think that's a piece where as coaches and instructors that we with strategic advantage baseball, that's what we're trying to do is develop those tools that is more around self-assessment or self-scouting, I call it, so that they have an idea themselves where they're at. And again, it don't have to be perfect. It just needs to be the piece that's moving them through these 4 levels. Because at the end of the day, if you want to play at elite level in college or elite level at the pro ball, then you're going to have to master these 4 levels. You can't get stuck in competitive advantage because a competitive advantage, your physical skill set is only an advantage against players that's not as good as you.
Right.
Once they start having a strategy and they figure you out, then guess what? You can throw 94, 95, 96, man. They turn on that in the big leagues every day.
Right.
So that's not a competitive advantage anymore. So now we got to be able to take our skill set and really develop a strategy for each hitter or each pitcher that we're going to be facing. And that's kind of where I see the game going. And it's cool. It's always been that way.
Right.
It's just now that we got more data and information than ever. And sometimes I think we fire hose these kids with data and information, and then we're frustrated because they don't respond or they don't take it and use it the way we think they ought to. And I think that's why we have a lot of coaches calling pitches now. I think that's why we see a lot of parts of the game, because maybe we haven't had that intersect of how we communicate, really how you use your individual skill set and create a strategy with it and then go execute it under extreme pressure in a real baseball game.
Yeah. And again, I want to bring this up because it's important that we understand this. Like you said, we got all of this information and we assume that guys will grasp it and figure out how they can use it to gain a strategic advantage. But man, they need a process. They need a framework.
Absolutely.
So that they can understand how to use it when they are in a real game. Is it going to be perfect? No. But that's baseball. And baseball is a game of adjustment, pitch by pitch. And it's fun walking guys through this. And it's fun when they start to really, really kind of you can see that they're really starting to understand it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I tell guys, man, I don't believe baseball is a game of failure. I think it just feels like a failure when you don't have any strategy,
right,
when you don't have a strategic advantage, when you don't know how to make that next confident adjustment, then it can make it feel like a failure. So again, I don't like calling baseball a game of failure. I think baseball is baseball. I think now our ability to create a strategy or make an adjustment is based on what we do. And so as coaches, how we develop players and individually help them understand that concept and grasp that it's more than the mental side. It's more than what you think. It's literally, how do we tie that piece together? How do we take our physical skill set and our thoughts and what we understand and believe about ourselves, and then what we learn about the opponent, what we study about the opponent, and turn it into a strategic advantage, man. So I think it's cool, man. We've had some great conversations with our guys here, and I think it's going to be a neat conversation to have here as we continue to grow out this strategic advantage baseball conversation, man.
I agree. And again, the 4 levels of individual player development are competitive advantage, unique hitting and pitching skills, strategic advantage, and game day execution. These are the things that we're going to go a little more in depth on over the next 4 podcasts. So this is what we wanted to kind of highlight today with kind of the overview for this very first episode, our framework for individual player development. And that's all I got. Darrell, you got anything else you want to add as we wrap this up?
No, Geoff, I think that touches on it. I'm excited to have this conversation with coaches and players, man. I know we get a lot of feedback here in Tulsa and then, across the board on social media about, literally how do you guys teach a process, or how do you guys really break that down? And how do you manage that? Honestly, how do you take the time and how do you figure out when to do it and how to incorporate it into a practice? And so that will be something that we'll definitely dig deeper into. And really it's, I'm looking forward to having this conversation, man. I think it's going to be fun and I'm looking forward to the feedback.
Likewise. All right, guys, we'll catch you all next week.